Hello everyone. In this video, we will try to understand how the Angular is actually loading this content on the browser. When we enter npm start, we got this page on the browser, correct? So what we will do is we will open this Angular project folder, which has this my first app folder, which is a project, and you can see all the project related files and folders. We will open this my first app folder from our editor Visual Studio Code, and let me go to the file and open folder, and there you can select the project, which is my first app. Select folder. So once you select the folder, you can see that my first app in your Explorer. When you expand this project, you can see those files and folders. What happens when you enter npm start is npm, which is a node package manager, this npm start, which is a node package manager, which is actually firing ngserve. It is firing ngserve because npm always looks for package.json file in this my first app. So in the my first app, there is a package.json file, and this package.json file will have all the dependencies for your project, and that npm start is a script, you can see here, which in turn is going to fire ngserve. Even ngserve is also a script, and this ng is actually an Angular serve is going to look for one configuration file of your project. So the configuration file name is angular.json file. So this angular.json is a configuration file for your project, and it has some project related configurations. In that, the two important things we need to observe are index and main. Index property will specify what is the index file, what is the welcome file that has to be loaded when ngserve is actually triggered, and main property will specify what is the entry point file that has to be executed when ngserve is triggered. So this index.html and main.tsc are part of the src folder, and the index.html is actually the one which you are seeing here. So this whole content will be part of index.html, and that is the only page which will be loaded by your Angular. And the next thing is the main.ts, which is a TypeScript file, which is an entry point when you enter ngserve. So this entry point file and index.html you can see in the src folder. This is the index.html and this is the main.ts file. So if you observe the index.html, inside the body there is nothing except this app-root. And what is this app-root? It is not an HTML tag, it is actually Angular component. So this is the root component which will be loaded in the index.html. So on your DOM, this root component will be loaded. So what is a component? If you ask, components are a basic building block in an Angular which actually shows the user interface to the user. So this app root is one of the root component which is part of the app folder. But before going to the app folder, let us go for another file called main.ts, which is the entry point file, and it has lot of imports statements, and you can see there is one code called platform browser dynamic dot bootstrap module in the bracket app module. So this is a bootstrapping logic which is actually going to bootstrap the app module. What is this app module? This app module is actually a module which represents your whole application. So it means when you enter ngserve, the whole application will be actually bootstrapped, and this app module will represent the whole application. This app module is a kind of actually class which will have all the application related features like components, pipes, routers, like many more. So this app module is actually present in this folder called app folder, and we will go for this app module first, which is inside the app folder. You can see the app module is part of app, which is a folder, slash app.module, which is a TypeScript file, which you can observe here, app module.ts. And if you look at the app module, it is a class with one decorator called ng module. So you can see this ng module. So this ng module has a few declarations, imports, bootstrap, providers and all. So this actually represents a module, and what exactly this declaration does is it actually will have all the components required for your application. Means this ng module is going to declare all the components that has to be loaded in your application, that has to be recognized by your application, should be declared here. The only component as of now when you create the project would get is this app component. This is the component which you will get when you create the Angular project. And one more thing is the imports, which is going to tell that a browser module is the module which is required to actually load your Angular application on the browser. And one more is the bootstrap. This is going to actually bootstrap Angular component, which is actually the root component will be bootstrap. So once this bootstraps the root component will be loaded on your DOM, and whatever the component this app component has, all their child components, the component tree structure will be automatically loaded once this root component is loaded. And this app component is part of app.component file. So this app.component you can see here itself, app.component.ts. If you look app.component, it is a class with one decorator called @component. We will try to understand decorator later. When a class is declared with @component, it means that this class acts like a component. Component means a basic building block which is going to show the content to the user. And this component will have one selector property, template property and style URL. But minimum two things required for the component. One is the selector, which is nothing but the tag name for the component, and one more is the template or template URL, which is going to show the content when the tag app-root is actually used. So it means this template URL is actually an HTML file which is going to have the content for this app-root. But this style URL is optional, which is going to provide the style for the content. So it means whenever you use app-root in any of the HTML or in any of the component, the content which is present in app component.html will be displayed. But this class has some variable like title. We will see what is this title later. But we will go and look for this file called app component.html. If you look at app component.html, you can see this content, which has the default content, a welcome content which every new project gives. So whatever the content you are seeing here is because of this file, because of this file. So let me remove this and just write div hello Angular. So what I have done is I have just added h2 tag inside the div, and it is an HTML file. Don't I need an HTML tag? It's not required because this is a component. Component need not have HTML. So the HTML will be there in index.html. So the HTML tag will be there in index.html. Everything goes inside the body or components. So this app-root is a root component, and once you use app-root, the content present in app component.html will be loaded. So the app component.html has this div, inside the div this hello Angular. So once you save, automatically the Angular CLI is going to recompile your application and it is going to reload your browser. So you can see that hello Angular is been printing. Okay, and the app component.ts also has one title property. So it has a title property. You can actually use this title property in your HTML as well. But what happens if you use the title properties? The value of the title is actually going to be shown. So in app component.html, you have hello Angular. Instead of hello Angular, let me use title. But if I use title, what happens? It is going to be showing the title property value, it won't be showing. So it is going to show whatever the text you have written, the same thing it is going to show, hello title. But I want the value of the title to be shown, which is present in app component. And remember, this title is a property part of app component. It means you should use that title property only inside this app component.html. So how to access that title properties? You should use two flower brackets. It means you need to wrap that variable in two flower brackets. This is called as an interpolation. What exactly happens is, when you use these two flower brackets, which is called as an interpolation, so it is going to show the value of the title. So now if you look at the browser, you can see hello my first app is actually printing. Let me change the value of the title. Instead of my first app, I will write Angular framework and I will save it. And once I save, you can see hello Angular framework is actually coming. So here you need to understand the only file that will be loaded on the browser is index.html, that is the welcome file, and the index.html is loading the root component, and this root component tag name is app-root, which is actually present in this app component with the component decorator. And app-root is a selector, and whenever you use app-root, the content of app component.html is going to be loaded. So what you need to understand is, in the index.html you have a root component, and you will be having only one root component which will be loaded on your DOM, and inside the DOM whatever the components which are added inside the root component, they all will be loaded. It means in the app component.html you can add other components, and when you add those components, all those components actually appears on your browser. So this is how the Angular is actually loading the welcome file and executing the main.ts. So we will try to understand in detail how to create our own components and how to give the tag names for the component, how to add contents to the component, everything in our next tutorial.